It was early morning in a quiet park. The air was cool, and the first rays of sunlight filtered through the trees. On a worn wooden bench, a teenager sat hunched over, staring at a broken bike wheel in his hands. His shoulders slumped as he let out a heavy sigh. He wanted to quit. He had tried everything over and over again, yet no matter how hard he worked, nothing seemed to go right. Frustration bubbled within him. He picked up a wrench lying on the ground and tried once more to fix the wheel. His hands shook slightly as he turned the wrench, but it slipped from his grip and fell to the dirt. Anger and despair overwhelmed him, and he threw the wrench aside. "Why does life have to be so hard?" he muttered under his breath, his gaze fixed on the ground. Just then, the sound of footsteps interrupted the silence. An old man with a cane appeared, walking slowly along the path. He paused near the boy, observing him with a kind smile. "Giving up already?" the man asked, tilting his head slightly. The boy looked up, startled, and then confused by the stranger's words. "What's the point?" the boy replied, his voice heavy with frustration. "No matter how hard I try, nothing works." His eyes drifted to the bike beside him, its wheels still broken. The old man chuckled softly, the sound warm and calming. He eased himself onto the bench beside the boy, leaning on his cane as he sat. "Let me tell you something," the man began. "When I was your age, I felt the same way." The boy raised an eyebrow, curiosity flickering in his tired eyes despite himself. The old man continued, "I was trying to build a tree house with my friends. We worked all day under the hot sun, hammering and sawing, but every time we nailed a board, it would fall right off. By the end of the day, I was covered in splinters, my hands were blistered, and my friends had all gone home." The man paused, a soft smile crossing his face as he recalled the memory. "I wanted to quit, but my grandfather told me something I've never forgotten. He said, 'The only time you truly fail is when you stop trying.'" The boy frowned, his mind turning over the old man's words. "So, what did you do?" he asked after a moment. The old man chuckled again, the sound filled with quiet pride. "I went back the next morning. And the morning after that. I made mistakes, I fell down, and I wanted to give up many times, but I kept going. And do you know what happened after a week?" The boy shook his head, his curiosity now fully engaged. "I finished the treehouse," the man said, a hint of triumph in his voice. "It wasn't perfect. It leaned to one side and the roof leaked whenever it rained. But it was mine, and it was worth every splinter." The boy glanced at his bike, the frustration still lingering but softened now by the story. Then he turned back to the old man. "But what if I can't do it?" the boy asked hesitantly. "What if I'm just not good enough?" The old man leaned closer, his voice gentle but firm. "Do you think I was good enough when I started?" he asked. "None of us are. But every time you fail, you learn something. Every time you try again, you get a little stronger. That's how we grow." The boy stared at his bike for a long moment. Slowly, he reached down and picked up the wrench. His hands still trembled, but this time there was a glimmer of determination in his movements. He tightened the bolts on the wheel carefully, step by step. The old man watched and nodded approvingly. "Good," he said. "Now remember, it doesn't matter how many times you fall. It matters that you get back up." A faint smile broke across the boy's face. He wiped his hands on his shirt and looked up at the man. "Thanks," he said quietly. The old man rose from the bench, leaning on his cane. "Keep going," he said with a smile. "You'll be surprised what you can do." With that, the man walked away, his figure disappearing down the shaded path. The boy focused on his bike again, tightening the last bolt. When he stood and pushed the bike forward, it wobbled at first. But then the wheel turned smoothly. A smile spread across his face as he climbed onto the bike and began to ride. From a distance, the old man watched, a proud smile lighting up his face as the boy rode away. And as the morning sun rose higher, the park was filled with a quiet reminder. The power of never giving up is the key to achieving the impossible. Keep going.